This podcast contains spoilers, so listen at your own risk or call back after you've watched the movie.
You know who you call. Leave a message. Maybe they'll call you back. Then again, maybe they won't.
We're having ourselves quite a little game of phone tag here.
Ring, ring, ring. I usually get this guy's answering machine.
I'll call you right back.
If you're there, please pick up the phone. I really want to talk to you.
I check my fucking messages every day when I come home from work. My answering machine, zero. I got a blinking light.
All I have to do is pick up this phone right here, inform the cinema, and your plan's kaput.
No, I ain't got no phone. I had to pull, because people calling all the time, and who needs the aggravation, right? Interruptions.
Hey man, just coming up on midnight, just taking a stroll around the neighborhood. Deathly quiet, so I'll try and keep my voice down a bit, even though I'm outside. I could hear a pin drop Sunday night. Been up since 6:30 every day for the past probably 5 days. Hard at work, baby duty and toddler duty and cooking, cleaning, the works. Finally everyone gone to bed now. I can kind of just get a little sliver of me time to count my thoughts. But my mother's staying with us at the moment, and we threw on Red Rock West, which is a hard one to say. Red Rock West. I remember hearing a lot about it when I first got into movies. First really got obsessed with movies in 1999. And I was buying all the movie magazines and, getting as plugged in as you possibly could in rural Ireland. Fox running along there. Might see a few more actually. I remember that one of the, obviously there's the big guys like Tarantino and Kevin Smith and stuff, but one of the hot directors that I was reading about and hearing about was John Dahl. I think he had made a film called The Last Seduction, if memory serves. And then I believe after that came Red Rock West. So it was a movie that was maybe a few years old, perhaps 2-3 years old, when I really got into movies. Otherwise, I'm sure I would have seen it as it came out. But because it was a kind of very well-liked sort of cult movie of the last few years, I ended up hearing about it a lot and kind of cultivating an interest in seeing it. And then I think it popped up on Irish TV, but I missed the beginning of it, and I felt like it was the type of movie where I wouldn't want to watch it if I missed the beginning of it. But my family was watching it. I remember my mother and my brother watching it, and me sort of kind of being in the space and catching bits and pieces. And there's a few things from the film that I remember quite distinctly. Maybe the most iconic recurring gag in the movie is you're now entering Red Rock, and now you're now leaving Red Rock. I think the town is called Red Rock in the movie, so I'm not really sure where the West comes in. Maybe there was another film already called Red Rock. Anyway, I think I didn't really watch it, but kind of sort of saw it a little bit back then. And over the years, I've just kind of had it somewhere in the background as a movie I'd like to get to. Then we watched Good Morning Vietnam the other night. J.T. Walsh pops up in that. He's always a pleasure to see. And coincidentally, I'd kind of lined up Red Rock West as a film to watch soon anyway, not really realizing that JT was in it. And then, and this could be just Google spying on me, or I'm not sure what, but I ended up seeing, I after Good Morning Vietnam, I went on YouTube and I looked up JT Wolff, so I wanted to learn a bit more about him, his background. What turns out he's had a really incredible career in theatre. Like the Kevin Spacey character in Glengarry Glen Ross, he originated that character. And did a bunch of plays with Pacino in the 70s. And anyway, don't really need to sing JT's praises. He's obviously, his amazing career speaks for itself. But then probably because I Googled that or I checked it out on YouTube, Instagram gave me a reel on like, here's films that you gotta see, like, you know, just the usual sort of completely lacking substance, but just fire a few quite likable cult movies at you. And one of them was Red Rock West. And then this evening we were like, let's throw on a movie. And all the stars had aligned. I guess all of this had come together. I knew my mother would like it. I also knew she had seen it before because I remember her seeing it, but I knew that she would remember seeing it. This is going, 20, 25 years or something back to when she would have seen it on TV. So we watched it. At the end of it, I said, "You've seen that, by the way?" She was like, "I have not." I said, "I remember well you laughing at this bit and that bit." Anyway, I thought it would be just the ticket to watch together. Thought it would be right up her alley. And it was. She loved it. It's great fun. It's interesting. I need to check out what happened to John Dahl, because that seems to be. See, it's not a director you hear about nowadays. So I don't know where that kind of trailed off. There's a film called Joyride that came out, Paul Walker, in the 2000s, which I quite liked, and I've got a half feeling he might have directed that. But yeah, I haven't checked out what else he's done. Anyway, Red Rock West, really good fun. It's obviously it's like a neo-noir, and it's very almost meta, in how it's not it doesn't break the fourth wall, but it's such a pushing neo-noir tropes and plot beats to their absolute extremity that it almost feels meta. It feels like it is a homage to noir rather than just being another noir in a way. The director that I'm most reminded of here is Rian Johnson, who's done things like Knives Out and produced a TV show very similar to Knives Out. I can't remember the name of it, but his shtick is you love movies, I love movies, let's do some of this fun movie stuff that we like seeing over and over again and popping up continuously. And this feels a bit like the film noir version of that. Sorry if there's background noise here. It's kind of a choice between being on a somewhat busier street or being on a street that's essentially like a recording studio where I feel like I might be waking people up. I'm not in the big smoke of London like yourself. But yeah, it kind of stops just short of parody. They just about earn everything, because when I started watching it, I knew that he doesn't want to be in that town. He's just sort of stuck there because the circumstance put him there, and I knew that he continuously wants to leave, but things just keep on bringing him back there. And I'd seen little bits of it, I guess, as a teenager, but watching it now, kind of older and more cynical, I wondered at the beginning, is this going to annoy me with how contrived it is? Is it going to be too smug and too, asking you to go with it too much or something? But lo and behold, I do think that the film more or less earns the crazy, over-the-top, convoluted plots that we get. Now, I'm not saying that it's completely realistic, because I think one thing is earning it within the sort of style of the movie, and the other is like believing that it would all happen. Certainly, I think it earns all or 99% of it within the kind of, it feels like nothing breaks the movie, nothing happens, or no one does anything that I'm like, well, you just broken the movie, because now I just like, nah, too much. But even on a realism level, you know, when you hear these like true crime crazy, you wouldn't believe what happened in this story. You wouldn't believe the twists and turns of this attempted murder or this failed bank robbery. It does kind of live in that realm of this could maybe happen. It would be a very over-the-top wacky story, but it could maybe happen. So I kind of like that. In fact, there's one scene in it where Des Hopper goes into the police station, pulls out a gun and shoots the receptionist in the head. And I thought to myself, I'm not sure I like that, because up until now, no one's killed anyone. There's been a threat of violence, a threat of, you know, gunfire and things. There's been this kind of like, we're dancing around things potentially getting really heavy and escalating to this really like crazy level. But we're not actually shooting each other. And when he shoots that guy, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe now we're more so in movie land than before, when we were like in a bit more of a restrained kind of, this is just some of the dark stuff that goes on in the underbelly, you know, society. But then I thought, no, actually, there's no reason why he wouldn't do that. Like, people are killing each other in America constantly because they're career criminals, and they, you know, figured that was the right thing to do in that moment. And it was maybe it wasn't the smartest move, maybe it was a bit impulsive, maybe it did make strategic sense, but it's not like actually that moment is unrealistic. It kind of works for that character. Maybe the least realistic thing is Nicolas Cage at the very end throwing all the money off the train, but it does still fit with his like, I don't steal money, I don't take anything that I'm like, I don't sleep with another man's wife, I don't cross these like ethical lines. There's some sort of code that he seems to be trying to adhere to. So even that, which is the most sort of classically cinematic moment in the film, I think, that still works with like it kind of fits in with a whole consistent character piece. So yeah, I would say the film is incredibly entertaining, great fun. I buy it all, and I love the fact that we get two of the era's most iconic baddies, J.T. Walsh and Dennis Hopper, in the same movie, because you get to see how differently you can play a baddie and it still be really menacing and work really well. They're kind of opposite actors in their approach to playing villains. Like, one is so serious, so like self-righteous and stern and disinterested in games and just dismissive of you. The other one is like a psychopathic, like a sadistic maniac who's wild and unhinged and giddy and impulsive. And to see both of those in a movie, and then ultimately to see both of those going against each other, is like fireworks. And then, you know, if you didn't know who the hero was, and you were like, you got J.T. Walsh, you got Dennis Hopper, like, you're going, okay, well, the hero is going to be a dud, right? It's going to be like Chris Cooper or something. Like, we obviously, it's going to have a cookie cutter, squeaky clean hero in the middle of it, and all of the character actors are what the reason why you watch it. But then the hero of the movie is Nicolas Cage. He plays it brilliantly. Like, I always like Nicolas Cage playing not a crazy character, because he's still going to bring some of that Cage energy. He's still going to get uncaged every now and again, but you know, he's also like just a really sincere, dramatic actor, which is brilliant. I'd like to know where this comes out exactly in his career, because he has this famous like 1 year period straight after he wins the Oscar for Leaving Las Vegas. He does 3 action movies: The Rock, Face Off, and Con Air, all in a year basically, and goes from being like an indie actor from like Raising Arizona and stuff like that to like one of the biggest action stars in the world. Completely like highly surprising career change, which he then rode with diminishing returns for many years. But this film, it feels more like that pre-action Cage in terms of the type of film that he'd be doing, but he looks very similar to what he looks like in those films like Con Air and stuff. So I reckon this might be like just right before he becomes the absolute superstar, like that, the A-list blockbuster superstar. But I haven't checked that out, so I'm not quite sure where it falls. What else? I love films set in this kind of like dusty, like truck stop off the highway, but it's a forgotten highway. Dive bars with old neon Miller Lite signs, like just really that whole world, setting any kind of thriller in there is amazing. I always love when I'm watching a movie or a TV show and we go into these kind of environments like shady motels with truckers and sheriff's office, and just that kind of like, this town has been away from the world, cut off for forever, festering. Whatever bad shit is going down here, whatever corruption, whatever like low level crime, that's just been allowed to fester and run free. And now our guy's getting mixed up in like a sort of it's kind of a bit roadhousey in a way, but it's all, I especially like when it involves kind of coming and going. And like a film that we talked about recently, Wake in Fright, is very culturally different because it's set in Australia, but it's that thing of like, what's going on in the millions and millions of towns, small towns that we don't talk about, we don't go to, they're way out there, and you know, in a tiny little country like we're from, that's less of a thing. But in America, that's, you know, you can really be cut off from the world, especially back in this era, pre-internet. Like there's some ways in which this film is kind of different than if it came out now, technology wise, you know, just things like cell phones and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's like, I really like that. I love the, you know, this is a lesser scene, but is the case in Wake in Fright, that inescapable town kind of thing. Like whether it's like some forces are bringing you back in, or like you inevitably have to keep going back to it for one reason or another. Like I like that kind of maddening surrealist. It builds the character of the town a lot. So yeah, that's always welcome as well. I think the way it unravels and the way you kind of like, you're always sort of second guessing, you're always trying to work out whether someone's like, you know that everyone in the movie is a liar, but you don't know if they're lying at that moment, and you're trying to read them. Like at the beginning of the film, and this could be an acting issue, I'm not sure, but when JT Walsh sees him pull up in the car, now he looks at the license plate. We later in the film learned that him seeing the Texas plates was tantamount to confirmation that this was the hitman, but we don't know that he's expecting Texas plates, so we just think that he's gotten, like, this guy's an outsider. He's like he's an out-of-towner, and he's a lone guy, and it feels a bit almost like premature that JT would, like, go, well, I'm guessing you're Lyle, right? So I actually thought for a bit there, I was like, is he just sort of bluffing and taking a chance that the random guy will say, yes, that's right, I am here to do the job? Do you know what I mean? Like, does he know that Nicolas Cage has nothing to do with this? But he goes, some random guy out here is probably down and out, so let me see if I can kind of like trick him into doing this. Now, that didn't turn out to be the case, but it's just an example of how when you're watching the film, your mind is always working and going, well, is she telling the truth? Does he mean that? Will that be there? And because you're doing that mental arithmetic as you're watching it, at least in my case, and I would imagine in your case, you do end up kind of, you end up guessing a lot of stuff. Like, I guessed that there was going to be a gun in the box that JT Walsh was opening at the end. I mean, certainly Laura Flynn Boyle quite quickly seems to be a femme fatale, right? With some far more than just I'm a damsel in distress going on. And you clock that, I guess, because it's like, you're just like, this, well, you know, it's that type of a movie. But that's fine. I mean, I don't think there's anything in the film that's really hurt by you guessing it. I mean, I also guessed that Dennis Hopper was the hitman, but I also guessed that the other guy that hit on the road was the hitman as well. So I was wrong on that one. But you're doing that kind of guesswork, and you're making these kind of like predictions and trying to work it out, and that's fun. And it's never like, they never overdo it on the twists. Like, they don't expect you to be reeling from any single revelation, because it's all just like, you know, fun twists and turns along the way, rather than what a big suspense for it was all built around one earth-shattering twist or something. Laura Flynn Boyle is fantastic, both the actress and the character. I think that it's a great femme fatale role. I think this film like just does so well at transplanting all of the best that film noir has to offer to this location and this world. I love the revelation that her and JT are essentially like fugitives. There's a bit where someone goes, how did you ever manage to become sheriff here? He goes, I got elected. Or something like that. I think it's Laura Flynn Boyle actually that tells him in the car. And I'm thinking, yeah, could happen. That might be a little stretch, that you can just like be on the run with a suitcase full of money, pull up in a town, and just because you got loads of money, you can actually become the sheriff. Probably just about by that. But anyway, when you're having fun, you're not really like looking a gift horse in the mouth. You're just going, yeah, let's go with that. Let's have fun with that. So, yeah, I would say really solid film. Glad I checked it out. Curious now to see what other John Dahl films might be worth a look. I think The Last Seduction, if that's him as well, is probably also quite noirish, so might be one to hit. And I'm glad to have hit a couple of JTs in the last week. I remember seeing him a few months back in The Negotiator, and it's a small role. You don't get enough JT in that movie, but the little tiny bit he has to do in that movie, he just absolutely smashes it. There's very few actors that can bring that much presence with such an internal performance where they're basically not, they're just glaring. Some of his best work is like, he's barely saying anything, he's just glaring, and he's just thinking, and yeah, a treasure for that. Anyway, hope you check this out. Be interesting to hear your thoughts, and I think you'll like it, so let me know what you think.
Hey man, just after finishing that movie, Red Rock West, today. Trying to remember that title will go under the canon of movie titles I'll probably forget. So when I'm trying to recommend to people, I'll never be able to remember the title. But yeah, liked it quite a lot. You know what? You're so lucky that you're able to just walk around at midnight and just leave a message for someone, like a voice note or whatever. Just walk around your neighborhood. That's my fucking dream at this stage. If I walk around here at nighttime, I'll just be so much on edge. There's so many like stabbings and crackheads and just gangs. It would be the most nerviest voice note ever. Not to say that there's a high chance that it would happen to me, but there is enough of a chance that it would be the most unrelaxed voice note ever. So it's nice you get an option between a road you can walk down or one of those suburb quiet areas. And when I visited you last year, I do remember it was quite a nice area where you lived. 1 second, I just have to sneeze. But excuse me. Yeah, so after Good Morning Vietnam, I went to be JT Walsh mad as well, in terms of looking up about the guy and what he's done and up until what point. He died quite young, didn't he? I think it was Breakdown was one of his last films. I think he died at like 52. Yeah, seems like a very interesting guy from a theatre background. Travelled around as a kid, lived in Ireland for 6 years, which I thought was interesting. County Kildare. But then again, JT Walsh sounds like very much an Irish name anyway, when you think about it. Worked as, of all things, the encyclopedia salesman, a high school janitor, all sorts of stuff. But yeah, so this movie, it's right up my street in many ways, and it managed to avoid some of the things that would normally grate on me in a movie. Well, actually, I wouldn't say it managed to avoid them. I would say that it managed to circumvent them by just what you gain from going with it. And obviously we get this, I don't know what copy you watched or what type of quality of the movie you watched, but mine was a very good Blu-ray copy, I believe, that was just showed the beautiful open highways and the film grain beautifully intact on my TV. So it very much felt like I was watching a screening of it in film, which I don't often get or feel when you get these copies sometimes. Sometimes a lot of it is digitized out of it and it just doesn't feel like a print. But the movie I watched, or the copy of the movie, felt very much like a print. So it's a beautiful opening shot of these highways, and we get quite a lot of silent time of Nicolas Cage in his car and getting out and doing some ridiculous push-up thing with his Chelsea boots, and spend a little bit of time with him in the beginning and just almost absorbing his morality compass, which I think goes a long way later on in understanding why he makes decisions he does in a movie where it's quite soap opera in a way, and it's quite, I don't know why you use the word ridiculous, but it's quite over the top. So I think the earliest scenes we get with Nicolas Cage is very good in establishing some kind of consistency in a movie where a lot of things maybe come out of left field, but all for a good cause, as I'll get to. Yeah, so we get Cage early on. He has a bad leg. He has driven 12,000 miles for this job, and he's pretty much guaranteed the job, but he is basically honest up front and says that he's got a bad leg and doesn't want to get a job under false pretenses and whatnot. So we get a good feel of his character early on, and then we see him going to a gas station and he has an opportunity to rob some money and he doesn't take it. And so we're looking at his compass here and there, and then he arrives to Red Rock, of course, and JT Walsh eyes him up completely in a really intense way at the bar. Now, I actually had clocked that just between JT Walsh's facial work and how he manages to own every scene and own the camera in his own thought bubble that externally fills every frame. I just love how he can do that. And we get him staring at Nicolas Cage. We get him staring at the car. We get him staring at the license plate. And then there's all this kind of groundwork been built up to allow us to, or at least how I interpreted that, oh, he thinks this guy is this guy because he's got this license plate. We already know he's out of town. Now, I do think he definitely jumped the gun prematurely, but I think all we needed was this scene to get to where we need to go with this movie. So this movie is very contrived in everything it does, and almost scene to scene there's a contrivance, but it's the contrivance you want to happen, and often a contrivance happens and you want it to get to the part that you predict it will get to, because you want to see what happens when it gets to that point. So it's only predictable up to a certain point that you desperately want to get to, and then you want to see, okay, how's that going to work out? So we get Nicolas Cage trying to blag a job. I feel like he's just trying to blag a job at this point when he goes to the bar. And then when he realizes JT Walsh is asking him to kill his wife based on the moral compass that we maybe gleaned from this character, that he's okay with ripping off someone who's really dodgy and maybe not good old honest construction work or whatever he was going to do. So his actions felt pretty consistent to me, which was great. So I didn't know anything about the setup. I didn't know anything about this movie. And then when we get, oh, this is complicated, this is fun, this is juicy, that he's going to masquerade as a hitman in order to makes the money. What's he going to do next? Okay, that's a contrivance, but what's he going to do with that? This is fucking interesting. This is like some Hitchcock shit. Then he goes there. We don't really feel like he's going to do anything. But then he gets convinced to double his money now to not kill her. And now he can rip off two morally reprehensible people. And he writes a note to the sheriff saying, oh, this isn't a joke, they're going to kill each other. So he does have his moral compass, but at the same time, he's taking his money and he's running. And you mentioned, where does this fall into the Nicolas Cage canon in terms of indie darling to action star? This was 2 years before the likes of The Rock, Leaving Las Vegas, and then obviously there was stuff like Snake Eyes. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few. So he does look like action Nicolas Cage, for sure. But he's really on form here. And I used to think Nicolas Cage was a pretty bad actor. And now I'm one of his biggest defenders, because sometimes he can seem laughable. But when you start to really think about it, and when you start to like Nicolas Cage, you realise he always keeps you guessing from scene to scene what his reaction is going to be and what's he going to do in that scene. And then he might go, fuck! Or like he just might throw in something. And then it seems so out of place that it's almost funny. But it's only out of place in a slickified movie response. Like, it's not cool. But it's actually more accurate to the weird, funny noises and sounds that people make when they're in despair or losing their shit. It's a lot more accurate, but we are just used to movies almost artistically, structurally putting a beat in a certain way. So Nicolas Cage sometimes is completely counter that. So yeah, he's an absolute joy to watch in this movie. You mentioned John Dale. I was a big fan of the movie Joyride, for absolute sure. Really liked it. I think Steve Zahn is in it as well. I thought it was very good when I saw it back in the day. It used to seem to be on every Thursday evening, every so often on Network 2. And I just read there that he done Rounders. Another movie I really liked. And he seemed to stop doing, and he did Red Rock before The Last Seduction, by the way, as well. And he seems to stop doing movies around 2007 and then become a TV director for hire almost. He's done stuff like Yellowstone, a few episodes, and what else has he done? He's done Breaking Bad, I think. So it is weird. I'd love to know what happened to him, because Rounders, Red Rock, and Joyride are almost of the same type of trilogy from memory. Now, I might be wrong about that, but it is very entertaining and very contrived, but you really want to ride that contrivance to be entertained. Sometimes when you guess something, you want to be right to show why it's a good idea. Like, you're thinking, oh, do you know, it'd be brilliant if they did that, and then because they did that, you're absolutely delighted. You're not thinking, well, that was predictable. Sometimes predictability is a good thing, and this movie is only predictable up to a point. Like, for instance, when he takes the job as the hitman, my next thought was, oh, I wonder when the hitman will show up. Oh, I'm quite excited for when this hitman shows up, and then when he's being chased by JT Walsh through the forest or whatever, and he rolls in the wood, and he stops getting knocked down for an inch of the car. I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be the hitman. This is going to be brilliant if this is the hitman, because we want him to be the hitman. And then obviously it's Dennis Hopper, and you know Dennis Hopper is going to be bad. And then the movie shows the Texas plates, and then you think, okay, I've got what I wanted. I predicted this. This is great that the twist has taken us this way. Now I want to see what happens. This is going to be a great interaction. And then we also get the reveal that, just before this, that the sheriff actually is JT Walsh, which is another contrivance. And you're like, what the fuck? JT Walsh, the guy who was working in the bar, is also the sheriff? And I wasn't along the lines of, oh, I buy this, I buy that, I buy this. It's more, I need this. This is fucking brilliant. This is brilliant that this is the type of fun we're having here. And because it's acted so well, shot so well, it's just so much fun. And, you know, we talked about the last stop in Yuma County in order to sustain the madness and in order to sustain the thrill, and how that fell flat at a certain point, and they're introducing different things for the sake of it. This sounds very odd to say, because this is a meander of non-stop things happening, but it never feels like it's been thrown in just for the sake of it. And like, for instance, one of the twists actually improved the plot logic, even if there is such a thing as a plot logic in this. Like I said, I think the logic of Nicolas Cage's character really helps this, because we need to have some solid character of consistency. And so I was wondering, why did it need to rob JT Walsh's fucking safe, right? Why did it need to do that? Why would JT Walsh need to kill her for her money if he already has her money? That makes no sense. And I was quite annoyed about the glaring plot hole. But then it turns out, no, it's actually a lie that he's hired the hitman because she's inherited money. They robbed money, and he's got the money. So that makes a lot more sense as to why they need to rob his safe. So that was a great twist, and it just changed things in a more dramatic way. That's the only twist I didn't see coming, because obviously there's no way you could guess that, where the fugitives who've managed to make a life for themselves in this town. Sure, you can debate whether it's realistic or not, or whether there's a chance it could happen, but it doesn't matter, because it makes it better. It makes everything better. We're on a ride here. We want this to be trashy, but it's acted so fucking well that it doesn't seem as trashy as it is. And that's another. It's almost like a trashy neo-noir that's got the feel of a prestige pick, or something that the Coen brothers would do. There's a bit of No Country Old Men in here. There's a bit of Fargo here, but if it was a bit more trashier, and I don't mean that as a negative. And what I really liked is, which you mentioned, is we get to see two different bad guy performances. And what's really great about the bad guy performances is, as well, normally when you're watching a movie and you got the first bad guy, then the second bad guy shows up, and you think, okay, well, he's the real big bad. In this, you couldn't really put a pin on who was running the show, and the answer is neither of them are running the show. I love creepy, over-the-top Dennis Hopper bad as well. He's an absolute maniac in this. He's the type that would lick you on the face if he thought it was funny, or dip his balls in your face while you're asleep. He's got that kind of vibe, that really weird kid in school who grew up to be an absolute psychopath type of vibe. He's in it just for this gets him off, and he's really unhinged, and you throw a guy like this into the mix and there's going to be dynamite. And then you have him teaming up with JT Walsh, and you get these buddy cop movies where there's two opposites working together and it's good guys, but in this we almost get the baddie cop version of two bad guys working together, and it's an absolute joy to watch. And we get JT Walsh's sternness, we get his pure see through your soul energy. You always feel with JT Walsh's characters that he fully thinks he's justified in what he does, and he is the good guy. Even if it's something fucked up, he is in the right, and he is going to fix this, and he's going to make it work because he's made himself out to be the hero somehow. There's some end goal that justifies everything he has to do to get to where he needs to be. And obviously we get some really low-key thrilling scenes as well, where Nicolas Cage is in the bar and he's trying to get out of it because he wants to leave the town, and he's reluctant and he's not showing his cards, and Dennis Hopper's saying, what, you don't want to drink with me? You don't want to drink with me? And he's really trying to get out of it and really trying to refuse a lot of the socializing. And obviously when JT Walsh realizes that's the hitman, Dennis Hopper, and there's a great sequence where they're both looking for him, and Nicolas Cage goes on the roof and he's just watching the situation, and he uses a plank to get onto a truck. That's a really good scene. And it's just such a simply staged stunt, but just in how it's filmed, there's so much tension in it, and it's essentially someone on a plank walking across a truck in slow motion, and it's just staged in such a thrilling way. There's not some CGI crazy stunt that you can't get a hold of because it's fake. Sometimes you just need someone walking across a plank, and it can just work so well. And a few other things you mentioned. Well, he didn't shoot the receptionist. I think it was a cop. And one thing I really liked in this, that the cops were clever and they got onto the sheriff's plan so quickly. We're used of the hick cops who just are complete bumbling idiots or corrupt. No, they're on to the sheriff and crack the case almost straight away, or at least they're on the scent of it so much from the beginning that it's so refreshing, and adds such another layer to it. Obviously, when Dennis Hopper just burns the random house as a distraction, the cop, who's basically almost close to an extra in terms of screen time and everything, he gets a few scenes to be clever, and it just adds a lot to it, that even with all this madness, they're being pursued by competent people, even if it's so much in the background. It adds another layer to it. And I really like the standoff at the end as well, and the fact that JT Walsh is almost does a Clint Eastwood in a way when he's saying, oh, you might think about pulling the trigger, but this is going to happen, and there's a gravedigger around the corner and he might hear. And you think that's a bluff, but then they actually give you that scene as well when the guns fire. You see these people, you don't see what they're looking at, but you see the gravedigger and his wife just staring on into the horizon, trying to interpret what they're hearing, and it just adds another layer to it. There's all these little nice touches to it. And obviously we know there's going to be a gun in the cash bag box, we want it to be, though. Obviously, but then another thing happens where the keys are missing. So it gives us these other things as well, and then it brings us to these moments where we just want to see what happens when we get the things we want and might expect from this genre. And we know that when Dennis Hopper throws the keys, he's going to pull out something. We're not sure what it is, but then we get that and it's a knife and it looks cool. But JT Walsh ain't dead. And so it continues on. And yeah, like you mentioned, you don't know if the characters are being truthful with each other. So you get away with something like Laura Flynn Boyle, is that her name? Saying, oh, what about Mexico? Are we ever going to go to Mexico? Or we could go there together. What's Mexico like? And that dialogue, in a way, is so cringe. But because we know she's playing a role and we know she's lying and we accept that she's a femme fatale and we accept that she's not being truthful, then it's easier to be okay with dialogue like that and lean into it. So her performance is good and everyone's performance is good in this. But maybe you have to accept the context in which you're watching things in order for it not to grate you. Like, perfect example, when you said that, oh, I wonder, is this going to annoy me that he can't get away from the town? And normally that does annoy me, where, okay, we've called the movie Red Rock West. Okay, so now they're going to have to stay in the town? But every time he went back into the town, there was enough of a plot reason for it, or enough of some kind of entertainment to make me completely forget about it. And sometimes he has to go back to warn Laura Flynn Boyle. Sometimes he has to go back for the money. Sometimes they have to do all these different things, but it feels relevant to the characters and relevant to the plot. So it masks the fact that they're not stuck in this Bermuda Triangle effect of filmmaking. That's when you feel it's the Bermuda Triangle and they're never going to leave. That's when it's a problem. I felt it and I forgot it. And that's probably one of the film's biggest achievements, actually. So yeah, John Dahl. A few movies on the list that you might want to check out. I wouldn't even mind checking out Joyride again. But there was one there, I think Kill Me Again, which was his first directed movie. I think Francis Ford Coppola was a big fan of it, and that's why he convinced Nicolas Cage or said that he should work with this guy. And then his last movie is You Kill Me. Don't know if anything got to do with that. Oh, it looks like a crime comedy with Tia Leone and Luke Wilson. And so yeah, maybe not that one. But he hasn't done many movies, but I've liked the movies he's done.
I never would have guessed you had a Laura Flynn Boyle impersonation up your sleeve. I think you'll have to do the rest of this conversation in that voice. Yeah, couldn't agree more with everything you said. Great points throughout. I'm taking notes, so I'll just respond to everything you said there. I'm just on my lunch break now, wandering around town. Gonna probably pop into Lidl, picking up new groceries. But really enjoyed the movie as well. I'd be well up for some more Dahl. I think Kill Me Again and The Last Seduction are the ones that really intrigue me. Obviously, I've seen Rounders and Joyride, be happy to revisit them, but also don't feel like I have to. And then the Tia Leone one didn't seem particularly attractive, but just mixing his style with comedy is not. I mean, it's already somewhat comedic because it's sort of stretching. It's a bit windy here now. I'm not sure if you're getting all this, but yeah, going more overtly comedic than this is not really where I would like to see his career go. But I guess if you watch the two that are either side of Red Rock West, then we might as well watch the final one that we haven't seen by him. I agree that it's a good looking film, like for its scale, for its sort of budget. I think most of his career now is as a TV director, but even his movies, I think, mostly played out on the small screen. I know that The Last Seduction was famous for Linda Fiorentino being ineligible for a Best Actress Academy Award nomination because it had premiered on television. I think Red Rock West got some cinema exhibition, but was more or less HBO movie. And then things like Rounders, like that, yes, it came out in the cinema, but like absolutely the life of that movie was DVD, video, TV, stuff like that. I've noticed a lot of directors, kind of smaller indie directors, disappear into the TV directing career path. I think it must be a bit exhausting to just have to scrimp and scrape, save and kill yourself looking for distributors and funding. Have to go to like 20 different production companies just to get enough money together to make a movie, and then spend like 3 weeks shooting it, and then, you know, obviously you have the post-production, pick it all, start it all up again. Like it's exhausting. If you're not getting that Paul Thomas Anderson acclaim where it's like, you're a genius, you get the Oscar nominations, you're getting this, that and the other. If you're just more getting what John Dahl was getting, which is like sort of cult movie status, no real financial reward out of it, just like you're getting to make movies, people are liking the movies. I think there's a lot of directors who, faced with that, decide, you know what, it's not worth it. I just want to show up, do my job, do good work. I mean, these are good TV shows, but for people like us who are more interested in film, it's a shame, it's a loss, I suppose. And it's happened a lot where I've gone like, remember that director I was really excited about like 6 years ago? I loved their first movie. The second movie was okay. I look them up then, it's like still nothing since then. Oh, but they have done a whole bunch of Succession episodes and Better Call Saul and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, that's their job now. Will we ever get another movie from them, kind of thing? But yeah, this looks cinematic. It looks good. It is beautiful. I think we've both got pretty big TVs at home, so you definitely are rewarded watching this on the biggest screen possible. I would have loved to have seen this in the cinema. But yeah, on some of your other points, I love that, as you said, Nicolas Cage is honest. He's an honest guy. It's kind of like when you see it, you're like, oh, well, this should just be one of the major archetypes of crime films. But I actually don't think I've seen it much. The guy who's like, his thing is like, he's on the level. He's an honest guy. He might be, because of his worlds that he kind of rubs shoulders with and his like economic bracket and geographical region he existed and so forth, he might be touching distance to some shady stuff, but he's a real, you know, upstanding guy. As you said, like, doesn't want to lie about the fact that he's got a bum knee, doesn't want to steal the $20, which is great. Many people that are very, very honest in the real world, like kind of across the board, would never lie about anything. And see one pop up in a movie like this is actually really novel, fits in really well. And I thought, I wasn't, it's not like I thought he was definitely going to do the murder. I presumed that he was heading out, scoping out the job, and then he'd fall for the chick. I didn't realize that his whole whole reason for trying to get closer and get into the house was simply to just say, look, your husband's going to try and kill you. And then when he takes the money from her, I still thought it was a possibility he was going to go kill JT Walsh. But again, he's not going to do that. So it's funny where the lack of killing is sort of like the twist in a way. That's even though from right from the beginning of the movie, he's portrayed as being like a real straight and narrow, honest guy. Exactly what he's going to do does keep you guessing. Like, as you said, the fact that he could have left Red Rock with your man Ron Howard's brother in the truck, but instead he goes, no, I got to go back and warn this chick that like there's a hitman on the way to kill her and things like that. Like that was that made for quite an interesting character. Another thing that I liked, and you mentioned when Dennis Hopper gets introduced into the movie, and he's obviously the hitman, but not everyone knows everything. But so we get this kind of few scenes of them in the car together, in the bar together, and they have this camaraderie over both being soldiers. One from Vietnam, one from, where was it, Lebanon? And both Marines as well. And I love that we get that section of the movie. It's actually fantastic. If like you're going to have these guys gunning for each other for the whole film, let's give us 15 minutes or 10 minutes where they can have like camaraderie and bands. That works really, really well. And it also is really nice because, as you said, Hopper is such a complete fucking unhinged psychopath, and no less than we'd expect from him. It's nice that we get to see what he's like when he's being a nice guy. Like he feels bad about almost running over the guy. He feels worried and concerned that Nicolas Cage might be dangerous. He feels happy that the guy is a Marine. He wants to have a drink with him, but he's like, you can tell he's a bit unhinged throughout all that, but it's just a great opportunity for a few minutes to just see this character outside of his role as a hitman or, as a kind of antagonist in the movie. So that was just a lovely way of introducing him. The soldier stuff is a nice link because it's generational. It's a repeating theme across the two characters. I did think it was a step too far to have him like have Hopper be skewered at the end by this war memorial thing. Well, for no other reason that I just don't think that thing would be sharp enough to pierce through him. Now, I'm nitpicking here. Doesn't take the movie down or anything, but it was maybe like they'd already established the soldier theme enough. I don't think we needed that. But it's nice seeing the contrast between the two Marines. Also, like, this is just something that struck me while watching the movie. Nicolas Cage he's one of the most broad-shouldered people I've ever seen in a movie. Like, other than the likes of The Rock, where basically their whole day, every day, is just mutilating their body through drugs and exercise and weightlifting. Like, Nicolas Cage's natural bone structure is incredibly broad at the shoulders. And I never noticed this until now, but Dennis Hopper's shoulders are so narrow. Like his head is massive and it's perched on these tiny little narrow shoulders. It's quite an interesting contrast to seeing the two of them together. And I like, all of these opportunities that Cage has to walk away, like whether it's deciding to go to the motel with year one, Laura Flynn Boyle, or deciding to go back and warn her, or whatever it might be. You buy it every time, and every time it comes up, I'm like, "You're playing with fire here now, screenwriter. I don't know about this," and then it works, and you're just like, you know what? I buy it. I buy that he would fall for that, or he would do that, or whatever it might be. So, does a really, really good job of making sure that it doesn't demand something of the audience that the audience is gonna like be put in a bad position to have to swallow. And the other point you said about the cops, like how they're smart. I also love that they're not corrupt. Like when we see, I kind of guessed that J.T. Walsh was the sheriff, but the other cops on the scene, I assumed that they were part of a corrupt apparatus, because in 9 times out of 10 in a movie like this, the whole police force is like owned by some sort of corrupt kingpin sheriff or rich businessman in the town or something like that. And the fact that, yes, J.T. Walsh is the sheriff and he's the big head honcho, but the other cops are, of course, they'll listen to him as their, like, superior, but they don't know that he's a bad guy. And as soon as they do, it's like, no, you're a criminal, we're cops. Like, I think that's really novel, and just one of the many things in this movie that's just that little bit different than you might expect. So again, very good movie. Happy to explore more dolls. Just let me know what I think. The one before this, which I believe has Val Kilmer in, would maybe be the best one to start with.
Yeah, man. I've just been waiting to rock off my Laura Flynn Boyle impression. I was hoping we'd watch 6 Feet Under. No, not 6 Feet Under. Which one? What's that famous one? Twin Peaks. And The Practice. So I could get to do it, but I'm glad I found a way in. In fact, I think I probably know more TV performances by her than movie performances. Do you know what? I think I cracked what I really like about the Nicolas Cage performance, and you kind of brought up the point as well that we don't see an honest guy trying to keep it honest while rubbing shoulders with seemingly unsavory characters. Obviously, he's honest up to a point, but you feel like if he was just going about his life, he'd be doing it in an honest way. But it's when he gets confronted with dishonest people that he has to adapt at times, but it still doesn't seem in a dishonest way. And do you know, I realize what's so likable about it. I play a lot of RPGs and you play a lot of point and click games, and we've had conversations before where how each of us go about playing those games, and obviously you try and put your own morals into it, and you try and play it as true to you as possible. That makes the decisions even harder. Now, that's what you said to me recently in games I've played more as a character, but sometimes when I have played as myself, it's like you're trying to put your own morality and your own virtues on display in a crazy situation. Like, all right, you have to choose between this person and this person in a zombie invasion. All right, you have to decide who stays back to fight a big giant spider, and you're confronted with these outlandish situations to go against your character and moral compass that's normally tested at the level of, oh, should I help that old person cross the road? And Nicolas Cage's character reminds me a bit of us in that way. It's how you imagine you would act and how you would go about the situation, and because of the character building earlier on, it allows you to do that. And I feel like it's very close to, it's almost a surrogate to how you would imagine yourself in that situation. I think that's why that performance clicks so well in this movie. I really like what you said as well regarding the scene we get with Dennis Hopper and Nicolas Cage in the car. You've made some very good points there. It is interesting, isn't it, that we get enough of Dennis Hopper's character in the world that allows us to imagine different interactions with him. You could imagine that you meet this guy at a bar, or you done a lot of hitchhiking, and you would meet this guy and you would have that interaction with him, and you would imagine, oh, this guy's a colourful character, this guy's a bit on the edge, but don't think anything beyond it. And when we get those early scenes with Dennis Hopper where he's saying, oh, you're not going to have a drink with me, oh, you're in the army as well, and there's a bit of camaraderie, and that puts him in a place in the world that you can imagine him when he's not on duty, if you will. And that works very well. And I like what you said as well about the link we get between, oh, you're a soldier and I'm a soldier, and it keeps coming back to that with the characters throughout. And what you're saying about the physicality as well, yeah, it is interesting that Nicolas Cage is naturally built that way. Obviously, He's got the bone structure, and I didn't really notice it so much about him until he said it, and I'm trying to visualize it in the movie. But I definitely noticed it about Dennis Hopper. It's almost like if someone who's a premature baby grows up, and I don't know if he was, not to speculate, but sick around that time, or maybe just that's how it's shot. I don't know as much about Dennis Hopper as I should. I know from Speed and movies here and there, but I'd love to explore some more of his stuff. But he did seem very demure, is that the word? In this, and it kind of adds to it, doesn't it? Because when you see his physicality, he's very slight, even compared to JT Walsh, who's another bad guy, but you start to realize in the same kind of Joe Pesci way that this guy has physical limitations. So you imagine him extremely vicious and extremely almost like a rattlesnake that's got a bite. So combined with Dennis Hopper's charisma and his ability to play these type of bad guys, mixed with his physicality, it's actually an asset. You know, we see movies where physicality goes against the heroes. I know there's magic in Wonder Woman and Black Panther, but when you see the person who played Black Panther in the second movie and Wonder Woman, you can't help but wrestle with their physicality going against it. In this, Dennis Hopper's physicality makes the character almost more menacing, because he's the type of person that will bite your ear off to get ahead in life, and it just works very well, doesn't it? Oh yeah, and regarding the John Dahl, it is a waste when you see a director not really been able to get his stamp on TV shows, because at the end of the day, he can direct a good episode of Breaking Bad, he can direct a good episode of Yellowstone, and countless other TV ventures that he's done, but you can't really put your stamp on something that's a script, that's part of a machine. Obviously, Rian Johnson directed the Fly episode of Breaking Bad, so I don't know if he wrote that script as well, but there's very few times where a director gets to show their character in the way that they do in a movie, so it does seem like a waste. But obviously around this time was very much on point, John Dahl. So The Last Seduction and that one you mentioned with Val Kilmer, I'd be certainly up for, in the same time type of way we did with Anil Aboot. Maybe there's a few movies of this guy that we need to discover. I really like Rounders and Joyride. I remember them quite well, actually, so probably don't need to watch them, but I might watch them for my own enjoyment. I'd also like to explore more Dennis Hopper movies, because I realised there's quite a blind spot on my catalogue.
Hey man, just walking home from the office now. Pretty hot evening. Did bring the umbrella in because it was a little overcast this morning, but umbrella and Hawaiian shirt is what I'm rocking today. Very English summer. Yeah, I like what you said about the how he's sort of a surrogate for the audience, and you know, when we play RPG video games, or like any video games that give you a degree of choice, certainly I am inclined to try and role play as myself. Like, what would I do in this world? And I always like a game that lets me really be myself. A lot of games, it's like they're kind of half letting you be yourself, and then it's like, do you want to kill this person to kill that person? Like, I don't really want to kill either of those people, but it is always satisfying when you see a movie that's in a very heightened kind of way removed from your life scenario, like a heist movie or a prison break movie or something, but the main character is like totally you, or how you'd behave. Because whenever I'm watching a movie like a heist movie or something that isn't like that, like in other words, that the character is not in anything at all like me, I'm sort of still going, yeah, but what would I do, or how would I get out of that situation, or what would I be willing to do, and stuff like that. So when you see one where the person is naturally more akin to your own morals, your own capabilities, your own comfort level with risk and whatnot, then yeah, it can be very rewarding. So I hadn't really thought about that, but it's definitely an attribute of the film. And as you said, it's novel seeing an honest guy. I mean, like, you and I are not the absolute most squeaky clean people in the world, but we are honest people, and we're not going to like rob some little gas station or something, little family-owned business. That's probably separates us from a lot of the lovable anti-hero crook with a heart of gold characters that we see and we love in these movies. So yeah, great job, Cage, managing to make a nice guy charismatic and interesting, because unless it's like a little boy character like Spider-Man or something, often Mr. Do-Gooder is just not that compelling a character, I think. And here it is. And yeah, I don't know the story with Hopper, his health. I know he died like not super old. And he's always like in Blue Velvet. He's like, I know this is not his real life. These are characters he played. But like in Blue Velvet, he's like got that ventilator machine he's on in Speed. He's, I think, dying of cancer or something like that. He's always looked and felt a bit frail. Again, I'm not saying that like because he's sick in a movie, that means he's sick in real life, but he isn't someone who, if you think about him on screen, at least in the 90s, you think of like a picture of physical health. I'm trying to think what else I've seen. Obviously, Easy Rider, Apocalypse Now. I did see a movie that he did when he was quite young. I think he played a sailor or something, which was pretty hopeless. He one of the most instrumental figures in the emergence of New Hollywood, with Peter Fonda in Easy Rider writing that, putting that picture together. But before that, he was also a part of the older Hollywood, golden age of Hollywood, kind of as a more minor actor. So he's someone who you can find him in sort of three pretty distinct eras of American cinema, which makes him an interesting character to study. Although I'm not sure if he has much in the way of like highly acclaimed movies before Easy Rider. But yeah, great screen presence. And yeah, I totally agree on everything that you said about JT Walsh and the sort of the gaze into your soul that he does as an actor. Yeah, again, very good picture all round. I think I need to get more Dahl into my life. And I was actually at work there chatting with a friend of mine. He had just seen Zone of Interest, the relatively recent, I think it won the Palme d'Or, Holocaust acclaimed, more art housey drama. I believe Jonathan Glazer directed it. Supposed to be incredible. And I thought about like how I've been interested in seeing that movie for a long time. Well, from when I first heard about it. In fact, before I even heard about it, I'm just sign me up for Jonathan Glazer in general. And then when I hear about it, I'm like, oh, Holocaust. Okay, right. So this is going to be very serious, very heavy, very important. And then the movie comes out and, everyone says it's amazing. And I'm like, well, I got to watch it then. But the appeal level of watching something like that, as opposed to watching something fun and thrilling and escapist and, genre-based, is I think that juxtaposition is something that any film fan kind of grapples with, because that watching, Tarkovsky and stuff like that is incredibly rewarding, and it's great when you do it. So it's not like you can just, only watch more entertaining films or more escapist, easy viewing type films. But it is harder. It's more effort. And I think what I find a lot is I'll take the easy route and I'll watch the more genre-based, escapist kind of movies. And I'll find that I'm watching very vacuous, shallow, unrewarding films that don't really give me anything to chew over or think about. I can't really savor the moment-to-moment drama because it's just, there's very little thought put into it. So getting to watch something like this, which is having your cake and eat it, it's pure entertainment, pure zero friction, easy, kick back and just enjoy it without putting any effort in, yet it's also just giving you so much cinematic goodness, acting, cinematography, really clever writing, the whole picture. Those are gems. There's a lot of them, and I think there's probably a lot of them that we haven't seen, but it's so nice when you get to see one of them, because you're like, oh man, you can really have your cake and eat it in cinema. So yeah, great flick. And I agree, Rounders and Joyride, good solid movies. I do prefer Red Rock West, but the fact that he's 3 for 3 in the films that I've seen from him makes me definitely want to check out the two either side of Red Rock West, which I think would be more similar to Red Rock West.
I've been coming into the back room, recording a lot of my messages for this movie, and in general, many of the movies we've been talking about in the back room. It's got a mini office / gaming setup, and I've done it so frequently that now when I come in the evening times after dinner, my cat is sitting here waiting for me, because while I send voice notes, I play with this laser pointer thing. So there's a whole behind the scenes thing going on for the last few weeks with this. So it's quite nice that this has become part of her routine as it has mine. Yeah, just to conclude one or two things you said, Dennis Hopper was 74 when he died. So, I mean, I don't consider that particularly young. I feel like that's a pretty, not to say a good age to die, but obviously sometimes when you're in your 80s, you're decrepit. So 74, I guess, is that about average now? And I totally get what you're saying when you're talking about persons of interest, or no, zones of interest. I'm having the exact same problem with that movie, and went through the exact same journey as you seem to be. Really excited. Then hear about the subject matter, I think, oh boy, this is going to be difficult to palate. And then, by all intents and purposes, it's passed the test. Everyone thinks it's brilliant. It's going to be brilliant, but there's just a weight to prestige things sometimes where it almost comes counter to a movie going experience, because you're sitting down thinking, I need to do this movie justice. Do you know what I mean? I need to be in the right frame of mind. I need to be fully awake. I need to pick the right time to watch this movie. And that's a hell of a lot of weight. And I think that's the appeal to movies like Red Rock West. You put it on and it's just plug in and play kind of easy. And it's just goes down so easy. It's like if you're getting some really nice takeaway. There's no hassle. It just gets delivered right to your door. it's on your lap and then you're eating away, as opposed to movies. Obviously, I haven't seen it yet, but movies like I presume Zone of Interest is, where it's just like a really exquisite meal that you have to savor. You have to make sure you've eaten right that day and not too advanced, not a big lunch, you know what I mean? Just to have it at the optimal level and really savor this. And sometimes that can be quite off-putting. But like you said, Red Rock West straddles the middle ground between that, where it gives you that cinephile feel, if you want to call it that you really crave, but it's just so easy to watch as well. So yeah,
that's a good way of putting it. When you watch a movie and it's like, you can mess it up, as opposed to, I mean, I guess you could be in the wrong mood for Red Rock West if you're in a really bad mood maybe and you just weren't up for having fun. But yeah, when you watch certain movies, you're like, yeah, this isn't a masterpiece, but if I'm not focused, if I'm not leaned in, if I'm not appreciating what it's trying to do, then I could end up missing this opportunity. So yeah, I never really thought about it in that way, but that is definitely like an aspect of what makes certain films more taxing.
Your mailbox is full. Please delete new or stored messages which you no longer need so that new messages may be received.